Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining me once again for tea time. Today we have a little bit of misty morning and focus combination because you guys know I love the bergamot, right? So good. Especially in the morning. It's got that little zing. You need it. You absolutely need it. Anyways, guys, today is a very interesting day. Why? Because yesterday Sony introduced their brand new flagship, all right? Their professional body.
Alpha.
Basically, Sony beat Canon to the punch when it comes to Canon's EOS R1 with the Sony A1, the Alpha one. Really an incredible camera. But I've watched so many videos between yesterday and this morning and read a bunch of articles, and every single one of them, or almost every single one of them, compare this camera to the EOS R5. Come on, man. Why is that, right? Like, I don't get it. I honestly don't get it. I don't get it. I'm going to get into it a little bit in just a minute, and I'm going to explain to you my thoughts on this. I want to go through some of the specs, why I do not believe this is a competitor to the Canon EOS R5. It just simply isn't. This is a Canon EOS R1. Like I said, before Canon released their flagship R1 professional camera, okay? So, let me just say that the Canon EOS R5 was created to be a 5D replacement, a 5D mirrorless, okay? This is what Canon is doing. They're taking their current DSLR line and turning them into mirrorless cameras. We're most likely going to see a 7D APS-C mirrorless from Canon eventually. Now, that being said, when Canon came out with the EOS R5, the intention was it being a 5D Mark II all over again. Why do I say that? Because they threw the kitchen sink into it. They did something revolutionary, let's just say. They put 8K into that full frame camera. Now, did it have heating issues like I said it would? Absolutely. But they did it. That was the purpose of it. They wanted to be the first. And they were, right? And it is a fantastic camera. Now, Sony, what they have done is they have rolled out their flagship Alpha 1, which is, let's call it the R1 from Canon, which is that camera that I've been talking about forever that would be that major release prior to the Olympics. This is a camera that they want professional sports, action, wildlife shooters, Olympic photographers to use, all right, in comparison to using Canon, right? That's what this camera is all about, all right? And these other channels are just getting it twisted. I don't think they see it this way, and I don't know why not. It's just very apparent. Anyways, now when Canon does come out with the EOS R1, I don't know if it's going to have 50 megapixels. Usually when their 1Ds come out, they have very low megapixels because they're doing a lot of other stuff. It's about capturing just fast action, high frame rate. Okay, and Sony was able to do that in this camera, so we'll see what ends up happening. I can tell you one thing for sure, that the EOS R1 will most likely be able to match the 30 frames per second that this camera does, the Alpha one, and most likely will probably come up with a quad pixel AF, something to be that revolutionary. We know dual pixel AF has been an industry standard for a long time, and now Sony, I think, has surpassed Canon when it comes to eye tracking and animal tracking and whatnot. Okay, so they're there. Also, I do think that if Canon does the EOS R1 and keeps that megapixels under 50, they're going to stick with 4K on the new R1 and do so unlimited recording, where it doesn't go supernova and turn into a ball of molten lava like so many people have spoken about the EOS R5 about. So let's get right into some of the specs of the Alpha 1, because this is what people are here for. They want to know what those specs are and what do I think about them. And here we go. So some of the key features, I just pulled out key features. I didn't go through all the specs. If you guys want to do that, you could go to B&H, maybe look at DP Review or something and look at all the specs. Okay, specs don't always tell the story, and we know that Sony cameras always look amazing on paper, and then later on, there's some little quirks here and there because they don't, let's say, reveal all of the nuances. So let's try boiling it down a little bit. So it does have a 50 megapixel full frame BSI, that's backside illuminated CMOS sensor. The ISO is 100 to 32,000. Now you can do an extended ISO of 50 to 102,400. You would never do that because it would look like complete crap. I don't know why they even talk about this extended nonsense, because if you get there, you don't want to be there. That's my personal opinion. But if you need it, it's there. Also, it will shoot up to 30 frames per second electronic shutter. Now that is exceptional. That is the fastest out there. And at 50 megapixels, that is a ton of data to be able to do at 30 frames per second with that electronic shutter. Now, if you use the mechanical shutter, you're going to get a maximum of 10 frames per second. 30 frames per second electronic shutter, 10 frames per second mechanical shutter. But something they did makes that almost irrelevant. And I'm going to tell you about that in just a second. Now, we'll also do 8K 30p and 4K 120p for video at 10-bit, which sounds all good, but is it 420, 422, 444? We'll get into that in just a second. Now, one of the other things I thought was kind of nice was it will provide 4.3K at 16-bit RAW video. That is 4K RAW 16-bit video out of this camera. I think is awesome. I would imagine there hasn't been anything said as far as what type of recorder. I'm going to guess probably a Ninja or something will be able to pull in this data and record it. So that's kind of cool. Now, the EVF does have 9.4 million dots of resolution. That's awesome. And it will have a refresh rate of 240 frames per second. So you're not going to get that blackout. It's going so fast, you're not going to see it, okay, which is really quite nice. Now, the back screen is something that's a little bit less impressive. The back screen is a 3.0 inch, a 3-inch flat back screen. It is a touch screen, but it is a tilty screen. It is not a fully articulating screen. I'll get into that also in just a minute. There's some reasons behind that, I believe. Now, as far as autofocus, it has 759 points of autofocus. Those are hybrid points. So that means that it's going to have contrast detect as well as phase detection. I think the phase detection is that 700 point number, and I think contrast detect, if I remember correctly, is like 400 and some points. But either way, it does have both. Panasonic, what the hell are you doing? Yeah, so it does have both, which is really good. Just like we would expect, their eye tracking is second to none. You need to have a really good autofocus system these days. So they do. They have it in spades. Also, it will do a standard 5-axis image stabilization, their steady shot as they call it, which is nice. And I think that will be 5.5 stops. It does have a dual drive shutter system. So you have mechanical as well as your electronic, but on the mechanical side, it will do 1/400th of a second sync. Okay, that's sweet. That is sweet. But what is really amazing is in the electronic shutter mode, it will be able to sync, flash sync at 1/200th of a second. Now, that is amazing, guys. What does that mean? That means that you could use your flash with this camera in electronic shutter mode. That is amazing. That's phenomenal. So kudos to Sony for that. Also, you're going to have your standard 5G for being able to make your connections Wi-Fi as well as gigabit. in this camera. If you wish to use that instead of a card, you want to dump directly to a computer, you can do that. It will also have dual card slots, which would be expected. Now, if you want to record at maximum bit depth, you will be able to do so, but you're not going to be able to use like a V60 card. You're going to need a V90 card to be able to do so. Keep that in mind. The price keeps bumping up as you get those faster and faster cards. Also, it will do pixel shift to be able to provide a nearly 200 megapixel image. So I think it's like 199 megapixels, which is great. Now, when it comes to video, it does indicate that it will do Ultra HD, which is 4K at a 120p, which will be a full readout of the sensor, no pixel binning, which is really nice. Now, that is internal 10-bit 422, but I think that we're going to get some possible overheating issues if you do that, or they're going to have to limit the time in which you record at that bit rate. Why do I say that? Well, they continue by saying that there is no record limit if, this is the if, you record in 8K 30p or 4K 60p, but 420, not 422. So when we see the information about video, speaking about 422 capture at 120p, there's no indication as far as time, any duration, or anything. So now they might leave it as unlimited recording, but with some type of limitation based on heat. That's a possibility. I don't know exactly how they're going to do it, but when they speak about 420, it highlights, it indicates no recording limitation. So take it as what you will. For me, I look at that as 422 will be a heat issue. We'll see what ends up happening. Now, they do say that they will be able to record 240p if you're recording in standard HD. So 1080p, you're going to get up to 240 frames per second for slow-mo. 4x slow-mo, 5x slow-mo, depends if you're doing 24 or 30 frames in your final output, which is cool. Now, going back to that 16-bit, they do say, as we were talking about earlier in the specs, that they will be able to pump out through their full-size HDMI port, HDMI 8 port, 16-bit raw output. That is amazing for doing just a ton of grading after the fact. The tonal reproduction there is going to be nuts. Post-production is going to give a ton of flexibility for doing that. So I like that a lot. So as we boil it down, like I said before, this Sony Alpha 1, the Sony A1, is a professional body sports action wildlife camera. Okay? It is a 1D or a R1 before the R1 came out. Okay? That is what this is. This is not an EOS R5. Okay? Period. End of story. Now, I personally don't think that Sony needed to go 50 megapixels for a R1 competitor. Why? Because sports action wildlife is usually lower megapixels. It's all about frame rate. But they were able to obtain 30 frames per second using these dual processors all the way up to 50 megapixels. That's amazing. Why did they do it? Why? Well, Canon came out with 8K. Their flagship needs to have 8K, and you're not going to be able to do it at 20 megapixels or 24. You just can't. There's not enough megapixels there to get up to 8K. So they almost had to do it, and they did it. Now, how is it going to fare once it's out there in the wild and people start testing it? We don't know. But I think this is going to be a beast of a sports action wildlife shooter. All right? And it will definitely be seen on the Olympic grounds during the Summer Olympics that will be coming up. All right? So that is really good. And that's what they're looking to do here. They want to see their white lenses out there in the barrage of shooters and not Canon's off-white. Okay? That's just simply it. Now, some of the little points that I put together here when it comes to the EOS R5 in comparison to this Sony A1 that everyone wants to talk about, I put down a couple of notes here just to give an idea. The R5 has about just over 1,000 points of autofocus, whereas this camera has 740 some, okay? Dual, let's say, that hybrid autofocus, both contrast as well as your phase detection. All right. Also, the R5 has a 3.2-inch back panel. That back panel, in comparison to the 3-inch of Sony, that back panel is fully articulated. What does that mean? Most of the time when you see fully articulating back panels, it screams video. This Sony does not have that fully articulating back panel. It is not a video camera. Can it do video? Yes. How proficient? I don't know. But it's not a video camera, right? Once again, it's a sports action wildlife shooter. Hence the price. I'll get to in just a second. Also, that back panel on the R5 has 2 million plus megapixels, whereas this back panel is just over 1 million, right? The back panel is just not the same. Both touch panels, but the R5 has it in spades when it comes to that back panel. Why? Because it's more directed towards video. Does it do photo great? Yes, but it really does video quite well. Forget about the heating issues. Now, also image stabilization. Canon will do up to 8 stops when you start combining, right? Whereas this is claiming 5.5 stops of image stabilization. Also, Canon's R5 will get up to 20 frames per second if you're doing electronic, whereas this is all the way up to 30 frames per second. Obviously, this is a sports shooter. Action, wildlife, right? That's what this is for. High frame rates, right? Also, you're talking about a 6 megapixel EVF on the Canon EOS R5, whereas this has a 9.4 megapixel or something. A lot more megapixels on the EVF. Why? Once again, the Alpha 1 is a camera that's going to be used like this, not looking on the back panel. They didn't put that extra money into that back panel. Most shooters are going to want the tilty screen. Okay, they don't need that fully articulating screen. Also, the EOS R5 has 1 processor in comparison to this having 2. It needs it, right? And the price. $3,600 for a Canon EOS R5, whereas this Sony Alpha 1 is $6,500. Now, when the Canon EOS R1 comes out, how much do you think that'll be? $6,500. This isn't rocket science, right? I mean, it's just stupid, right? Just in your face, easy. And that's why when I see all of these videos going back and forth comparing the EOS R5 to this camera, it's this dumbest thing that I've seen. It's just crazy. It's just stupid. It doesn't make any sense. It makes absolute no sense. So anyways, guys, I think that this is an amazing camera. I think the Alpha 1 is going to give whatever professional that uses it a ton of functionality, a ton of flexibility, and many years of enjoyment, okay? Unless there is some type of major issue when we see it in the wild and testing come out, which I seriously doubt, I think it's going to be fantastic. This camera screams for a grip. Okay, there's no sports action wildlife shooter that's going to shoot it like this, you know, like the iPhone with this little crap. Okay, you need a grip. And that's why the Canon EOS R1, when it comes out, I will almost guarantee will look like a R5 with a grip built into it, just like a 1D, because it will be a 1D. Right? So why Sony didn't do that with this camera, I don't know. Maybe in a way to make it so that it's more accessible to everyone. And if they want to put a grip on it and turn it into what it really should be, they can. But if you don't want to, you can leave it just like it is. So anyways, guys, I think this is an amazing release. I think Sony absolutely crushed it here. The price reflects it. And I do think, once again, as a sports action wildlife camera, I think it is going to be absolutely amazing. That's just my personal opinion. I want to know your thoughts. What do you think about this camera? You think that's going to be amazing? Is this something that you can afford? Is $6,500 just out of your price range completely? Or if you are a sports action wildlife shooter, is this something that possibly can pull you over from Nikon or Canon into the Sony platform? All right. Is lens selection a possible issue for you? A lot of the sports action wildlife people, they want those mega lenses, and Canon has them in spades, right? So what happens with that? Will, before the Olympics come out, we see a Sony 1200 plus millimeter? Possibly, right? One of their nice, beautiful G Masters. It's a possibility. So once again, I want to know your thoughts. What do you think? If you haven't downloaded my ebook, I want to say please go and do so. It's free. 10 tips at making tack sharp images. Go grab it at JCristina.com/ebook. Once again, JCristina.com/ebook. If you like this content, throw it a big thumbs up. That would be absolutely awesome. Also, if you didn't watch my last live broadcast, go check that out. We had Ken on there from Down Under. He's an astrophotographer. It was like 2.5 hours of just a ton of information. Go check that out. That is amazing if you like astro anything, all right? He tells you how to do astrophotography on a budget, and this guy is just unbelievable. So go check that out. Maybe I'll put a link over here to that video. Also, if you are subscribed, click this little bell icon right here. So when I come out with a new video or when I go live, you'll be notified of it immediately. Also, when we're done speaking about this in the comment area below this video, head over to community.jcristina.com. That is our creative Discord server. Once again, community.jcristina.com. Our creative Discord server has a ton of rooms, a ton of channels where you can discuss everything. Doesn't matter if it's different camera platforms, lenses, astrophotography, underwater photography, doesn't matter what it is. Go check it out. There's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of photographers, videographers, and tech heads over there, and I'm there all the time. So go over there. Also, if you want to support the channel, click the little join button down here. Throw the channel a couple of bucks every month. That would be awesome and very much so appreciated. I can throw some perks your way also. So anyways, guys, that is it for today. I hope you enjoyed this Sony Alpha 1 discussion. If you did, once again, throw it a thumbs up. Many blessings to you and your family. Stay safe and stay healthy.